Hello, everyone. I'm Samuel Ryman. Alongside me is Joe Peak. And Joe, I think there was a race last weekend, and it gave us a few things to talk about.
Yeah, there's a championship, I think, that was decided this weekend, if I'm following things correctly.
Yeah, well, a couple of championships. Oscar Piastri was a Formula 2 champion. Kudos to him, but I don't think we need to talk any more about that. So first things first, it's 24 hours after the race is finished. Briefly, how are you feeling?
I'm a little bit more calmed down. I have to admit, my heart rate was going after I finished watching the race, and I had a broadcast immediately after. So that was a little bit tough to get into the right mindset. But I think being able to really look at it as a whole has definitely helped me get a better perspective on things. And surprisingly, I feel like I'm sure you wouldn't expect me to say this, but I feel like Max deserves the championship. I think he was fast all season, and I think he did what he needed to do fairly to win it.
I don't think there are that many people out there, and people in the comments will probably prove me wrong, but I don't think there are many people out there who don't think that Max didn't deserve a championship. It's just that they're upset with the way in which he got the championship. And I was a little bit concerned myself. I was a little bit partial towards, a lot partial towards Verstappen throughout the season. I wanted him to win it. And I was a little bit concerned when the race finished. It's like, is this really going to feel like a win? But I've got to admit, 24 hours later, I do legitimately feel like he won the championship. He made the pass, stick on the track. He raced all season. There was a chance. Hamilton and Mercedes had the chance to pit. I know we'll get into everything that happened afterward. But, at the end of the day, Red Bull made a call that ended up working out for them. And Verstappen did what he needed to do in that final lap to win the race. And kudos to him. And he won the championship that way. And when has there not been a classic championship, 94, 97, 08 come to mind, where there wasn't a little bit of controversy or something at the end of it? It's always played a little bit of a role in the sport.
It has. And I think we also have to consider what a lot of pundits always say, which is it's not decided in the last round. It's every single round counts for points. And you look at things that both Max and Lewis did, and there were definitely points given away that could have given them the championship easier or sooner. And especially in the case of Max, which is, again, why I feel like he deserves it. I think back to Silverstone, especially. If he had maybe just taken the 18 points, he could have cruised through and had an easy championship come Abu Dhabi if everything else had stayed the same afterwards. So it's yes, it came down to the wire, and yes, it was controversial, but I feel like all things considered, he ran the faster season.
Yeah. Again, me being a bit on the Verstappen side, I definitely feel that way. I feel that there were a lot of opportunities where Verstappen lost out on points that were not necessarily his fault, such as Silverstone, obviously, is the first one that comes to mind. And then Baku, granted, Hamilton didn't get any points in Baku either at Azerbaijan after Verstappen had a tyre blowout and Hamilton got his braking wrong. But had none of that ever happened, Verstappen would have earned 7 extra points over Hamilton. Granted, Hamilton was also lucky at a couple points, unlucky at a couple points during the season as well. Verstappen maybe could have been given a bigger penalty after Saudi Arabia. I know it was self-induced, but Hamilton's mistakes at Azerbaijan and at Imola obviously cost him some points there too. So, and it was interesting, maybe a bit manufactured by F1 that they came into the season finale tied on points, but and then obviously the last race. So let's stop bouncing around it. Let's get into the race, and let's actually go all the way back to lap 1. What were your thoughts on Verstappen's move on Hamilton heading into turn 6?
This won't surprise people at all. I don't think Verstappen's move was on. I think that the fact that he basically ran him off the road means that it essentially, my view on it, if Lewis had turned in like normal and Max had ran into him, it would have been a penalty for Max. The only reason it wasn't a penalty is because Lewis decided to take avoiding action. And to me, that says that was not a good move. That was a dive bomb. I feel like the stewards dealing with it was probably about the best way they could, because neither was really in the right. I feel like Lewis really cut that corner quite a bit and then handed it back, which gave him track position. But I also feel like, to me, Red Bull complaining about that as much as they did during the race, I feel like you need to turn it around on them. If Max wanted that position, then make a clean move. Why make a move that's marginal like that and then put yourself in that spot where it has to be decided by the marshals? I'm trying to remember who said it. I think it was Massey at one point said, if they want a clean race, that's up to them. And well, there you go. It was in Max's hands.
Initially, again, I'm going to preface this each time, myself being a Verstappen fan, I was obviously, I don't know if I was disheartened or disappointed that Verstappen was slower off the line, because I thought, oh, we have a couple of long straights coming up. This might actually be better for him. I was surprised. I wanted him to go for it. I wanted him to try and get the lead back from Hamilton on the first lap. I was surprised he tried to do that at turn 6. Because he was so far back, I thought he might have had a better chance trying something at turn 9. Likewise, on the final lap of the race, I was surprised he went for it in turn 4 or 5, whatever that hairpin is. I thought he would wait until turn 6 there, so that Hamilton couldn't get slipstream on him. But Verstappen does what Verstappen does. When he sees a gap, he goes for it, and there's a lot of people will always debate about whether that's good, clean racing. It was interesting. It might be Martin Brundle or someone pointed out that that's the move. That's the kind of move we kind of congratulated Daniel Ricciardo on for a few years ago, when Ricciardo used to be at Red Bull, and he won the race at Hungary by making late dive bombs at that. One of the reasons I'm inclined to agree with you, though, is because Verstappen is making a dive bomb like that heading into a chicane, and chicanes have innate dangers in them. Initially, my thought was, Max, what are you doing? That's far too late. You're being far too aggressive. And when they played the replays back, I kind of saw where he was coming from with it. I kind of saw the argument that, yes, he was alongside, and yes, he was able to stick onto the racetrack. At the same time, I'm not surprised, and I'm not too angry at the FIA for saying, no, that would have been a collision. We're going to let Hamilton keep the spot, and he gave his time back. And at the end of the day, I think, everyone forgot about that in the long run, because Hamilton turned out to have a faster car anyway.
Yeah. And that to me kind of made the big point. It did, before that final caution, it did kind of enter my mind that had he given the position to Max, though, that would have potentially changed the gap between them before that final yellow came out, and that could have affected the end. It was all a moot point anyways, but I don't think it was completely immaterial throughout the race until everything kind of got reset there. So I do think it's important to go over it, and especially because I think this conversation about driving standards needs to keep up. I feel like I see drivers keep doing this stuff and then expect it to go their way with the stewards, or be upset that they get penalized and things like that. And to me, it's like, well, if it's marginal, yes, at that level, you have to take things right up to the edge, but wouldn't you rather have it solidly and have it for sure rather than make this thing a toss up?
Well, yeah, and we'll get into more of team radio, I'm sure, as this conversation goes on. So the second major event of a race, and there's nothing really to argue here, but we might as well give a shout out. Sergio Perez. Yay, Sergio Perez, driver of a race.
That was impressive stuff, honestly, considering the extra pace that Lewis had over him and the worn tires. Again, a testament to Sergio's tire management. I feel like the way that he kept that car together so well on those soft tires for that long, and then held off a faster driver for that long as well. I want to see him have more success, just like you're prefacing. you cheering for Max. I'm cheering for Sergio so much. I was so glad to see him get the Red Bull seat, and I've been glad to see him have at least a little better success than we've seen some of the second drivers in Red Bull have had. But I want to see more wins. I want to see him up there getting more podiums next season.
Yeah, I think when you partner a driver with Max Verstappen, you always can have someone who's running fifth or sixth when Verstappen's running first or second, it seems, until you get another Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton in the driver's seat. I think I'm actually kind of surprised Mercedes won the team championship. I thought the performance of Perez and Verstappen combined was a lot better than what Bottas was doing back in that Hamilton throughout most of the season. I'm kind of surprised that went Mercedes' way, but credit to them, credit to Bottas and everything. Mercedes pulled that off, so well done to them. Let's go to the next part of a race. So, and this brings up team radio again, the virtual safety car for Antonio Giovinazzi. 2 points of controversy or points of note to bring up here. It's the first is that it was Mercedes' first opportunity to pit for tires. They didn't do it, obviously, because had they, well, what are your thoughts on that? Because had Mercedes pit for tires and Verstappen stayed out, Verstappen would have been in control of a race, and it was proven hard to pass. But do you think Hamilton, on his better pace that he'd had throughout the race, could have beat Verstappen anyway?
I think so. I think this is, I mentioned this on my Twitter. I feel like it's a very strange irony that this was the complete reverse of Alonso in 2010, because yes, it was still a little tough to pass, but it didn't look all that hard to pass compared to before. I think the removal of the chicane before the hairpin definitely opened things up a lot more. Drivers were able to catch up to each other and have better opportunities. So I definitely think, especially considering the pace that he showed mid-race, I think he could have overtaken him. I think that was a strategic blunder from Mercedes. So part of my frustration lies with them and their choice. That part of my frustration, and I've also said this before, is with Giovinazzi. Why the hell did he not pull into the support pits or any of the openings that he had along the way and just parked it at one of the most dangerous spots? That I don't buy into any conspiracy theories. I'm just mad at him for altering the nature of the race the way that he did. And it's just like, why does racing have to do this to us?
Yeah, I think there is a rule for safety in place now that he can't go down the escape road under his own power. You know, he can't do a U-turn and drive into that little place where the marshals are. And I mean, I guess that makes sense. You don't want to be driving backwards on the circuit or whatever. But yeah, it is kind of annoying that anytime the car has a mechanical failure nowadays, if they can't get back to the pits, we end up having virtual safety cars or safety cars. And that's just the nature of the fact that the cars are so fast now that they kind of have to do that. But the second point of controversy I want to bring up, Joe, and you were talking about Red Bull getting on the radio to Massey, arguing their case in the opening laps. I wasn't really a fan of Toto getting over the radio under Giovinazzi's thing, saying, please don't bring a safety car out. It's like...
I think though, just real quick, I took that to mean a full safety car, which I get. I think the virtual safety car was the right call in the situation. And I think that's what I took Wolf to be meaning. If he did mean even a virtual safety car, then yeah, that's definitely not on.
But no, I think I agree with you there. I think it was telling Massey, hey, please don't put a full safety car out there. But at the same time, that's not something they should be asking.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe all this that we're seeing or hearing, I guess we should say, of that radio communication like we didn't before, maybe this highlights something that should change. Maybe they shouldn't be allowed to pander to the steward in this way. Maybe this needs to be, to me, I almost feel like this needs to be the steward should be the one reaching out to the team to get their input rather than them pinging him to try and prematurely influence what he does in this. I kind of agree with those that it doesn't really look good in a lot of cases. I understand what's going on and I understand why they're doing what they're doing, but I think there needs to be some control taken of that now that we're made aware of how that all works.
All right, so let's get to the closing laps. I was pretty much sitting back on my couch. My sister's a Verstappen fan. We were texting each other. We were basically saying, well, unless Hamilton blows a tire on one of the curbs, like who was it who got a punch in the closing laps? Norris?
Yeah, Norris, and then Bottas had one in Losail as well.
Yeah, it's like unless something like that happens to Hamilton, that's a miracle that Christian Horner's hoping for. Other than that, it's Hamilton's in the bag, and kudos to him. And then Latifi crashes. Now, there's been some people making conspiracies or whatever. I don't get it. Williams has Mercedes power.
Yeah.
No, Latifi crashed. It happens sometimes, especially when you're in a poor handling race car like a Williams. Rest in peace, Sir Frank. What were your thoughts when the safety car came out? When the crash happened and the safety car came out, which of course it should. It was a crash that warranted a safety car.
My initial gut reaction was pit now. You made the mistake last time and put yourself under the gun. Now you got a chance to do it again. And I get that he was closer, and I think they still would have lost position. And the other trouble is that there were less laps. And
did you think we were going to see more racing?
I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. I knew that Massey was going to try his hardest because I know his main concern is safety, but he's a racer. I think he understands that fans want to see it end under green. And so I knew he was going to do everything he could in his power to get it rolling again. Whether or not that happened was a giant question mark. I think for me, though, the thing that really complicated it once it was pointed out was the fact that it might not have gone green, because I didn't even think of that. I thought, oh, pit now was what I was shouting at the screen, and they went past, and I couldn't understand it until someone said that, oh, well, what if they don't restart? He would have given away the win. I think back to, I think it was IndyCar at Iowa some years ago. One driver, I think, gave away, I think it was, brain is going on me, the Canadian, but
Hinch.
It might have been, no, it wasn't Hinch. It was, anyways, but there were drivers that gave away podiums, and I don't think a win, but like definitely good spots, pitting in under caution, thinking the race was going to restart and they'd have a lap or two, and they never restarted the race. That didn't even occur to me until one of the commentators had said that. And yes, I can understand now why they didn't pit, because of that risk, and it would have looked really silly giving away the championship doing that. At the same time, it's just, why did they put themselves in that position in the first place at all?
Yeah, I mean, we see the same kind of issue in NASCAR happen occasionally when it starts raining there, and the leaders left with the decision of, oh, do I pit for strategy, or do I stay out thinking the race is going to end under red flag? So it's not the first time that issue has arisen. And it was a legitimate strategy call that Mercedes had to make in the heat of a moment. I can understand why they stayed out. Obviously, hindsight being what it is, the correct decision would have been to come into pits. Red Bull had the advantage of being second place, where they had nothing to lose, no one behind them. So Verstappen could pit and get his new tires. I did not know if a race was going to go back green. I thought it would, because I thought Formula One knows what's up. They know it's not a random race in the middle of the season. They know a lot of people have tuned in to the final race of the season wanting to see a race for the championship. They're not going to end it under safety car. Hi, Kitty. I do not blame Formula One and Michael Massey for trying to do everything they can to end the race under green. And honestly, if I'd been in Michael Massey's same position, I would have been thinking, okay, what can I do to make this race finish under racing conditions? I think they should be credited for that part at least.
Absolutely, I agree.
I think only with hindsight can we say that throwing a red flag straight away would have been a good decision. I understand, right? What are your thoughts on that? I understand right now with hindsight, it's like the best decision would have been to have thrown a red flag and had a 3 or 4 lap shootout. But even then, Why would you
Yeah,
throw a red flag for one car crash that can be cleared up in 2 or 3 laps?
exactly. Well, and the problem with that too is there would be a lot of Max fans who I think would be upset
Well, and
because
Lewis
then
fans upset too, because that would wipe out his 10-20 second lead.
it would, but they would also both be able to change to fresh tires and making it a straight fight. Yeah, it would have evened it out, but Lewis would still have track position, and I feel like we would be hearing the reverse argument that there was some conspiracy to help favor Lewis so that he could go on to win a race, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think it would solve the controversy. I think there's really no good way out for the F1 stewards in this situation. That as soon as that wreck happened, it was always going to go bad for somebody. Nobody really was going to be able to come out completely dead even with one another unless they had like restarted them wheel to wheel at the line or something, you know. To me, the frustration in that whole thing more lies in the way they handled the lapping cars.
Yep.
I don't think any rules were broken. From what I understand how the rules are written, I don't think anything was done out of line there, but I don't like how they said they're not going to pass. And then seconds before we go to green, they said, now you may pass. That to me is a bit of a cheap shot against both teams, really. Neither had time to prepare for that. They're just suddenly told that. To me, the biggest warning possible would have been the most fair to both of them so they'd understand what had to be done in the situation. Lewis was really blindsided by that. I can understand some frustration from Mercedes' point of view on that end, but I don't think it's worth them protesting the way they are and appealing it.
Yeah, but so I was about to ask you, what is the biggest thing that annoys you after the race? Because I'm sure there was something. I'm sure because I think everyone was a little bit thrown off by how it all ended. I wanted to see it end the way it did, obviously, but like you say, as soon as they said the lap cars can't pass, oh, well, that's it. If they had never said that, if they had just waited till the last minute to say lap cars can pass, and not even just the top 5, you know, all lap cars,
exactly,
then I would have been okay with it. Even if they only had time to get halfway around the lap and they didn't have time to reform, I would have been okay with that one lap shootout if it had been the plan. But it wasn't the plan. It was something that was thrown together at the last moment.
And I don't think that was any influence, because I've heard people even say that's like, oh, that was Netflix trying to influence things. No, this was just everybody up in race control were doing the best they could in the moment. And I think in the moment they probably thought, well, the viewers and we want a straight fight between them, so let's wave them by now that we have the opportunity. Again, I'm with you. I don't think they should have said that in contradiction to what they did before, just because that made things all the more confusing in the situation. And for what it's worth, I know you said you thought it was over. I don't think it was over if the lap cars had still been in there. I feel like they probably would have not fought Max all that hard and try to let him through at the best opportunity. And Max still probably would have in that last lap had at least 1 or 2 chances to try and give a go at Lewis. It just would have been a little harder. I know, because I'm a Lewis fan, I would rather see it for different reasons, but I also feel like it would have made it a little bit more exciting to see what Max could have done in that high pressure situation to blast through and then make the attack. I don't know. That's just me.
I don't really agree with you then, and the reason why is I think I would agree with you if it had been 1 or 2 lap cars. I think 5 was too many, especially considering the fact that they were still racing each other. I don't think
that's true.
I don't think Verstappen could have pulled it off, because there might have been a couple who were like, okay, we're going to let you by, but we're still going to try and race each other. And I think that would have held up Verstappen just enough. Maybe a 2-lap shootout or something. He could have done something with it, but
white checkers.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's get to that. Actually, I know we're bringing NASCAR into this, but you mentioned earlier about Giovinazzi and the virtual safety car. This is something we're seeing more and more in Formula One because of how fast the cars are, how safe the sport has tightened its regulations up to be, we are seeing more of these caution periods. IndyCar and NASCAR have systems down, fine-tuned over decades of racing, decades and hundreds of caution periods, that when a caution comes out in NASCAR or IndyCar, what the hell do you want, Kat? Go away.
She wants in on the conversation, clearly. Everybody's got opinions on this.
Yeah. When a caution period happens in NASCAR or IndyCar, the fans, the drivers, the teams know exactly what's going to happen, no matter what the situation, most of the time, 99% of the time. Formula One, there's still a little bit of ambiguity. The lapped car rule they have, I think, is really silly. And the red flag rule as well, but that's another story. I think everyone agrees with that. But the lapped car rule of, hey, if you're a lap down, surprise, you get your lap back now. It wastes time under the safety car period. And
I'm going to disagree on this one, though,
Okay.
because so the reasoning behind this is because when the caution flag comes out, those lapped cars often could be in a battle with someone who is separated by the leader. So they're in a fight, and suddenly they're a complete lap apart from one another. So
you bring up a good point. In Formula One, they're required to let the leader by, whereas in NASCAR and IndyCar, okay, yeah, they can fight to stay on the lead lap. Okay, I get where you're going with this.
Yeah, so that's, to me, I feel like, as frustrating as it is, I'd rather see that, because I don't want to see drivers who are, because I mean, gosh, they were, even in this race, they were lapping points scores like up to within the top 10 before the race was over. So that's actually important stuff there that they're fighting for. And I'd hate to see that interrupted and separated by an entire lap just because that happened. It allows them to get back into it, and nothing's really changed between them in that case. And then the other thing too is I would rather see more situations where they're not having to fight through that lap traffic when they get the restart. And if they just cycled them back through, not only are they now a lap down, now they're a lap down and they're behind all those other cars on top of it. So in fact, they'll go a lap down from the car they were fighting with. So that is the one reason I will fight for that, or the two reasons I'll fight for that rule to stay in place as it sits right now.
So what would have you done if you were Michael Massey in the closing laps of a safety car period? And what do you hope, if anything, changes for 2022?
I think in Massey's shoes, he did all he could. The only thing I would have changed is I would have had a decision and a clearly communicated decision on what's going to happen with the lapped cars, saying they're not going through no matter what from here. They're going to stay put, or they're staying put right now. But as soon as we get that car clear, we are going to send them through, instead of just lapped cars may not go ahead, because that, like you said, it gave the impression that, oh, they're going to stay put. So all the teams were preparing for that, which I think is a disservice to them. That's the only thing really that I would criticize Massey for. Otherwise, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with all of the yellow calls for him.
As much as I wanted Verstappen to win the championship, I feel the right decision by the rulebook and by precedent at the time was to restart with those lapped cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen. I wouldn't have liked it. I would have been one of those people saying, Hamilton only won the championship because he took Verstappen out in Silverstone. But to your point, I've got to admit, I've never really read the rule book or anything. And now that, all these rule book pages have been published over Twitter, I see, the race director can pretty much do what the hell he wants, which is a stupid rule. And then, the other one was the fact that, okay, there is a rule in place that if we don't have time to let the lap cars go by, they restart in the positions that they're in. So it's like, okay, that's per the rule book. If you take away the Michael Massey can do whatever he wants rule, that's how the race should have restarted. That being said, I like what you said there. If they'd said, if they had never opened their mouths and they had never said the lap cars will not be able to overtake, I would have been fine with them saying, okay, all lap cars may now overtake. We know we're going back racing in half a lap, but it's the final lap of a race, people. We want to get a show on the road, get moving. I would have been fine with that. The way it was a little wishy-washy. I'm a little biased because I wanted Verstappen to win the championships. I'm not happy with the way it went down, but I'm happy with the result. Going forward, I just, yeah, I hope they get some kind of system down better in place now, because virtual safety cars and safety cars are becoming more of a part of the sport, and Formula One and the teams and the fans need to be a bit more aware, know a bit better what's going to happen when an incident like that does take place, especially in the closing laps.
I kind of wonder if Formula One needs to look more at the World Endurance Championship and Le Mans with the slow zones and things like that, and how those are implemented. Because I'd like to see something in that fashion potentially be able to be used more, so it does interrupt the racing less, but keeps the marshals safe. Because, man, it was an eye opener last year. Was it last year? Man, everything's blurring together. Where Russell had his spin off the track in Imola, right by the marshals. That was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, it is dangerous to have them, even get a little bit up to speed, because things can happen, and we'd hate to see someone's life or limb get taken out for something as silly as that. And even the pros, sometimes will have little spin ups. So I feel like there's definitely examples out there. There's stuff that they really need to start looking at. Like you said, there's other series that have more experience with this sort of thing that they need to start being willing to open themselves up to, and take ideas from elsewhere to help them both keep it safe, entertaining, and fair.
I'm going to add on to that I think it's a little sketchy what we saw happening at Saudi Arabia a week ago with that marshal running across the wall to pick up a front win. I know that all the time in, and he was probably being told, no cars are coming, you're safe to go. But it's a blind turn behind a wall. You have, one day, if people do that so often, they're going to get it wrong. And
someone's going to twist an ankle and they'll, find themselves laid out on the track, So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a fan of seeing that, but next year, I guess I can go back to being a Ferrari fan. Hopefully, if they bring a good package, and I'll be over this whole Max Verstappen phase. I was mainly rooting for him because I didn't want Hamilton to beat Schumacher's 7 championships. I'm not a Verstappen fan by choice this year. It was kind of because Ferrari wasn't there. And kudos to Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari as a whole for getting third. That's a bummer that we saw an Alpine and the McLaren win this year, and Ferrari still didn't pull it off. Leclerc could have done it at Monaco. He could have done it at Silverstone, but whatever.
That's racing.
Yeah, next year. Any final thoughts before we go into the off-season, Drew?
It's funny how you're saying you're happy with the result, but you unhappy with how it happened. I'm not the complete reverse. I'm unhappy with how it happened, but I'll accept the result, sort of thing. It definitely, man, this is the worst a race has affected my mood in a long time. Like all last night, it was just kind of like a funk over me. I was so invested this year. But I agree with you that I'm excited for next year because of the reset. I'm really excited to see how the cars race, how the cars will look, and what this will do, if it'll give us a more crazy well, not a more crazy championship. I don't think we can get a crazier championship, but to see what it does to the teams and shaking things up.
Yeah, of course, I'm a little opposite. I was concerned all week because I legitimately thought Hamilton was going to win this championship, and I don't think you need to watch. You can watch the first 50 laps of a race to see why I thought Hamilton had the upper hand on the championship. He had more experience. He had the better car. He was holding himself together better, got a better start. But they flubbed on strategy there at the end. They're just a little bit too conservative. Okay, let's take all the controversy aside. That was a great final lap of racing.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, the racing throughout most of the race in general was really good. Other than like my complaints about that move on the opening lap, there was great stuff. So yeah, I can't fault it. It was a thrilling race. It's what we've been wanting as fans. And yes, it was controversial, but we've been asking for entertainment. We got it.
Yeah, Hamilton had the older, harder tires, but I have a feeling that whoever won the race into turn 9 was going to win the race. And Hamilton was alongside Verstappen going in there. Granted, at that point, Verstappen had the inside line and the grip advantage. But I don't think, I'm not sure it was a done deal at the time of a restart. It obviously was.
I was worried they were going to wreck, frankly.
Yeah.
I thought it would come to that.
When Verstappen sent it to turn 5, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're still far back. Get a better run. Do it in turn 6 like you tried on the first lap. But he pulled it off, kind of. Well, I mean, he did pull it off. You know, he didn't give Hamilton a whole lot of room on the exit, but he knew exactly what he was doing. He was disrupting Hamilton's momentum so that Hamilton couldn't get a run on him going down the back straight. That's car positioning. Yeah.
So, no, he did it fair and square on that last lap. That's why I said I can't fault him. He did it. He did it the way he needed to do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, fortunately, it's almost the end of December, Joe. So if you're waiting for this off season to be over, it will be over very shortly. And wish everyone a happy holidays and happy New Year, and see what 2022 brings us.